I'm Stephen John Drew from the official GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
If you want to have the results that you're looking for, and you're doing the things that have been shown to give those results, keep doing them consistently, even when they're incredibly boring.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
It has been a hot minute since we've done, I guess, a regular episode. It's been a while. We had the two creators on the couch with Philip Kennedy Johnson, and this episode itself is a week late, so apologies for that. Wanted to time this one with the release of the movie that I'm putting in quotation marks based on some of the reviews that I've seen, trying to tie this in with Madam Web, but we're going to be talking Julia Carpenter, aka the second Spider-Woman. But before we do that, just a couple of things. First off, and I mentioned some of this on social media, but I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the passing of a friend of mine and a friend of the show's. Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss, unfortunately, passed away earlier this month. And that one really kind of hurt because I never got to meet her in person, but I did have the privilege of being on her show. And then she also did some voices for us. And I guess I always kind of hoped that maybe one day I would get an opportunity to go up to Massachusetts for something and get to meet her in person. And it really sucks that somebody who touched so many lives in such a positive way is not around anymore. And, you know, I'm not big on parasocial relationships and things of that nature, but I don't consider some of the friendships that I've made over the course of the almost 6 years that we've done this show with other podcasters to fall into that category. And Kate was someone that I very much considered a friend. And it really sucks that she's not here. And so I just kind of want to acknowledge that and say, Kate, you know, wherever you are, I love you. I miss you. And, you know, we're just going to try to keep on doing what we do and helping people because that's what she always did. And as she always said all the time on her show, and we kind of co-opted the language a bit, is you matter. And that has never not been true for us. And so I think carrying that forward as her legacy is really special, you know, to have something. It's just two words, but they are, at least for me, they are and will forever be linked with her. And so I just, you know, kind of want to put that back out there into the universe and try and spread that as best as I can. Yeah, it's just like I said, it's tough to go into the Discord server and interact with the community that she created and you know, that continues to live on without her, but it's different.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to talk about loss later on in this episode and you know, things changing.
Yeah.
Hate to start off the show on kind of a downer note like that, but like I said,
but it was, it's a tributary note as well. It's acknowledgement that, you know, she had a positive influence on a lot of people, even those that she may have never personally met. And that's one of the great privileges that we as humanity are able to do for one another. So I definitely thank her for that.
So in brighter news, trying to pivot a little bit so this doesn't all become doom and gloom right off the bat, we are going to be at PoochCon Teaneck this coming weekend. We'll be talking Bakano, the anime that doesn't really have a main character. And so we're not going to be covering one specific character. We're just, like the show, we're going to be hitting a whole bunch of different characters and different things from the show. So that panel is 2:45 in panel room A. That's a Saturday, March 2nd. So you can still go to puchicon.com, puchicon.com, and get some tickets there. Hopefully we get to see your smiling faces if you happen to be in the area. And lastly, speaking of stuff in March, our 6th anniversary is coming up, which just, again, continues to blow my mind that we've been around for that long. So we've got some fun stuff planned. There'll be a new sub-series, I guess, or pillar, as I've been told that that's what they're called as far as like content creators. You know, if we were a magazine, it would be like a vertical, but we're going to be introducing a new pillar to our series soon. So we've got, obviously the main Capes on the Couch. We've got Creators on the Couch. We're going to be introducing a new pillar, a new series. I'm very excited to give you some of the details on that soon. With all that being said, we kind of announced a lot of stuff early on. So now that we got a lot of the housekeeping out of the way, let's get into the crux of the episode, which is about Julia Carpenter. Julia Carpenter, created by Jim Shooter and Mike Zeck in Secret Wars number 6, October 1984. Technically, she's only a shadow in the last panel of number 6. It's one of those, like a Wolverine situation where it's that last page cameo, and then the next issue is the one where she's there in full and we actually see her in all of her glory, in her distinctive costume that then becomes the inspiration for Peter's Venom symbiote. Well, that's a whole other thing. So Julie Carpenter, the second Spider-Woman, is introduced during Secret Wars, and her origin is later explained in West Coast Avengers and a 1993 miniseries. Spoiler alert, that miniseries is the recommended reading for this episode. So her origin is that her parents were scientists who were studying plants and spiders in the Amazon jungle. And I'm not going to get into the Madam Web line. And the parents were often away for weeks or months at a time. She married her college sweetheart, Larry, and had a daughter, Rachel, before divorcing him after he cheated. Larry, not Rachel, just to be clear. As part of the commission, Val Cooper secretly used spider venom as part of a study to create government-owned superheroes and injected her old college friend Julia under the auspices of a government fitness study. The injection gave her powers similar to Spider-Man, although her webs are psychic in nature. Not to be confused with the totality of her psychic powers or whatever Claremont line was constantly used by Psylocke to explain that glowing purple hand sword that looks not dissimilar from the Halo energy sword. Anyway, I'm all over the place tonight. Sorry, folks. Shortly after gaining her power, she was drawn into Secret Wars. Upon returning from Battleworld, she joined Freedom Force and then the West Coast Avengers. After being attacked by Charlotte Witter during her assault on all spider people, Julia lost her powers and was paralyzed for a time. She regained her powers and ability to walk after another injection of the same serum. And during this time, she had a relationship with the Shroud. Now calling herself Arachne, she joins the pre-registration side during Civil War, only to later reveal herself as a mole for the anti-reg side, and she is beaten by Carol Danvers and imprisoned. After escaping, she begins searching for her daughter Rachel, and a violent encounter with Aranya leaves her defeated, although Carol apologizes and vows to help her find Rachel. During Grim Hunt, Cassandra Webb, the original Madam Web, the spinster woman that a lot of us think of when we hear the name Madam Web. She's murdered by Sasha Kravinoff, but before Cassandra dies, she transfers her ability to Julia, rendering her blind, but gives her telepathic abilities and makes her the new Madam Web. She helps Peter and the other heroes during Spider Island, and shortly thereafter has a massive vision of the entire universe, sending her into a coma. She's later awakened by Otto Octavius, who's operating as Superior Spider-Man. He's damaging the Great Web and later establishes the Order of the Web, a group of all the spider-themed heroes. So Peter, Miles, Maddie Franklin, Anya, Corazon, all of the associated spider characters. Basically, anybody that you would think of that would show up in the Spider-Verse films, that's who is included in the Order of the Web. So again, that's a very brief overview of some of the history there. And now we're going to get into the issues. The theme is, and we're going with a Carpenter pun here, for want of a nail. That's right. We're going to swerve you here. You thought we were going to go something web related. No. We're playing off the If I Were a Carpenter and You Were a Lady. So the first issue, Bobby Darin did a fantastic version. I'll link that one in the show notes. Beautiful. Another person who was taken from us too soon, Bobby Darin. I'm all over the place tonight, folks. I guess my ADHD meds have worn off at this point. It makes it for fun and interesting. Her strained relationship with her parents due to them not being present for much of her childhood. It's a situation, this is covered a lot in the 93 miniseries, where they show up and they're cordial, but it's not a loving, warm, fuzzy relationship. It's very much you are my birth givers, and her parents tend to glom onto Rachel more as the granddaughter and almost view Julia as a means to access their granddaughter. Not in a malicious way, but just we really love your daughter, so that's why we're here to see you.
Yeah, it's fascinating when people who have multiple priorities in life find a way to spin that wheel in terms of what happens, like how it lands each time. Like, I want a significant career. Well, and I know I've used these analogies before, but it's like, all right, you rolled a 6. Sweet. All right. Thinking of a typical cubed dice. All right. And what about a loving partner? All right, you rolled a 4. Hey, that's pretty good. Awesome. Glad that you did that. So what about children? Well, no, I mean, I want to make sure financially that I'm well off and all of that. Yeah, but what about children? No. I need to do something else. In other words, there's only so many times in life that you can ignore other factors that are going to play a role. And if you are close enough with a person that you have intimacy and you do what intimate people do, I'm not trying to do the birds and bees talk. I'm just saying, yes, there is a good chance that you're going to have children in your life. And how you decide to incorporate that, there is no set in stone rule book other than society expects you not to let them die, and society expects you not to abuse them. And even then, there's a lot of leniency as to what people consider to be abuse, although nowadays I think we're getting much better in recognizing what that could mean. So what I'm getting at with this is I'm not trying to call her parents neglectful. I'm not trying to call her parents abusive. I am saying, though, that there were other things that were just as important, if not more important. And if that's the case, the child has an opportunity. You didn't think I was going to say that, did you? You thought I was going to say that child is going to have a difficult time. That child is going to have a lot of problems and whatnot. That's not always the case. Many children who develop resiliency at an early age due to the necessity of utilizing the resources around them, they don't have to have instant resentment for that. They don't have to feel lonely, even if they are alone. Let's say they are an only child. They don't have to have displeasure towards their interactions with siblings or whatever if they weren't the favorite. I'm coming up with all sorts of variations for this just to point out it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. But that does mean that there are humongous challenges. One is more than likely you're going to end up having more distance with the adult relationship compared to a lot of other families where there is a much tighter bond at a younger age. At least there's the probability that you're going to be seen as, and once again, this is loaded language. You're going to be seen as a family acquaintance as opposed to a family of friends. And there's definitely some baggage there. And it's all up to whoever on both sides wants to bridge that gap, if they want to at all. There's no true maxim that says people who weren't close when they were at a different age are going to remain far apart for the rest of their lives. So that's the good side. The negative side, of course, is the amount of energy necessary to create a close bond becomes much larger as long as that time continues as they get older. So no, it's highly unlikely if you didn't have the tight bond when they were young and as a teenager and in their 20s, it's not going to develop in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It still can, but wow, does that get tough. And then magically, because of no obligation usually,
that love seems to immediately come back also because when a grandchild is brought into the mix, it's none of the societal responsibility, unless there's been some truly tragic events, but there is all of the, how do I put this? All the stuff you missed the first time, all the things that you get to enjoy with no pressure. Oh my goodness. You get to have all the benefits of the innocence of youth and the mistakes without you having direct actions and their consequence. You can reward usually at whatever level you see fit without worrying about whether or not you're quote unquote spoiling the child. You can, simply cut ties. I hate to say it that way, but you are the one controlling all the strings on your end in this puppet mastery show. Wow. A lot of the upsides, few of the downsides. I'm trying to be as neutral as I can because like I said, there are people that live their lives this way. And I'm not trying to shame it. I'm just saying there is another way if you never thought about it up until this point. And while it's never too late, the later it gets, the more you're going to have to put into it.
Yeah. Grandparent-grandchild relationships are a very interesting thing. And it's something that I've become a lot more acutely aware of since I became a parent, that led me to kind of reflect back on my own relationships with my grandparents and as well as my parents now, and now having 2 kids and my in-laws as well. There's a litany of things that all have effects on the relationship. And I've spoken to numerous people who have had to unfortunately make very difficult decisions about the contact that they have with their parents and subsequently, limiting the grandparents' access to their children because of decisions that were made in the past, things that were said, et cetera, et cetera. It's not easy. And I push back on the narrative that you say, oh, their family, that they should always be there because they're family. That is not always the case. And I am never going to shame anybody for having to make the incredibly difficult decision to have to cut somebody out of their life for the betterment of themselves or their child. So I know that's not exactly what, we're talking about. And that's certainly not the accurate description of the relationship that Julia has with her parents and thus the extent and thus the description of the relationship that they have with Rachel. But in terms of reality and talking about these types of things that hit very close to home for a lot of people and a lot of our listeners, yeah, that's real. And I think that also transitions very nicely into the second topic, which is maintaining her relationship with and custody of Rachel, because Julia has obviously been operating as a hero for a while. And, you want to talk about not being present for portions of her childhood with her parents. She got locked up. There's this and that. I mean, all this stuff. And we've done numerous episodes on characters that are parents and trying to also be superheroes. It is not an easy tightrope to walk. That obviously has an impact on her relationship with Rachel and subsequently her parents, because she wants to be a mom and she's absolutely a devoted mom, but she also can't ignore her powers. And with great power comes a lot of really difficult choices.
So once again, I want to start similarly to the previous topic to say that this is not meant to shame anybody. Whatever situations you've had to deal with in life, if for whatever reason, maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's just you had some substance issues and you had to go to rehab for a while, lots and lots of family distress, and people had to be split up. For all of our listeners in areas that are in great turmoil, and it's just simply a physical thing. You cannot be in the same location that the rest of your family is, including your children. First, just want to say we hear you, we see you, we understand that. I wish I could say that somehow that makes, for example, if it's a matter of grief, because there can be the sense of loss in that time period, because you know that physics, quantum stuff aside, like this is a one-way street. You're not getting that time back.
And all of those hallmarks, milestones, whatever you want to call them, they come around once and either you're there or you're not. That's just the reality of the situation. And partly speaking from direct experience, living it, seeing it with my own child, and a lot of it just from education and observation, children notice. They really do. And I have no guarantee what your child's personality or temperament is. That's not my place to say. In other words, I'm not going into guru mode and saying, well, if you didn't spend this amount of time with your children at this age, this is the result, et cetera, et cetera. It's not prescriptive. All I'm saying is that the opportunities for your child to develop in your absence leads to a greater increase in variability. It's probably in your best interest, when possible, to do two things. One, just actually call it out. Like, say the times where you're not there that you still care and you want to be there, if that's truly your motivation. Because I know Anthony has said this many times, children are great BS detectors. So if you
Absolutely.
simply point out that your other obligations prevented you from doing this, that is a false narrative. If you point out that you have a fantastic interest in what they are doing and need to find a way to incorporate it into your life more, that's a better channel because it implies that it's an ongoing issue. It's something that can be dynamic. It's something that can change. Because I think a lot of us, and yes, I'm including myself, we set ourselves up by saying and making promises saying, oh, well, I'll always be there. I will always go to their games. I will always be at this practice. I will always do their homework with them. I will, et cetera, et cetera. And if you are, that's wonderful. And that is the ultimate path to go, understood. But heaven forbid you, quote unquote, break that promise. What does that say about you? And what does that say about their stance on you? Are they going to have the type of mature attachment that says that reality dictates that human beings are not going to be with each other for all 24 hours of the day? Or are they going to have some level of resentment or anger or sadness or frustration that you have not lived up to the bargain that you set forth in the first place? You have a lot more control over what you are projecting to your child than whether or not you're there all of that time. That is the part that I think we don't give enough credence to. Yes, you can log your hours. Yes, you can make sure that your schedule is the way it's supposed to be, but there's only so much that does. Being real about what you can do and delivering on it is way better than basically, what's that say, over-promising, under-delivering, you know? If you could flip it, that's great. Even if you can't flip it, if you can just deliver what you can and deliver with a lot of awareness and, mindfulness of being in the moment, that's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah, I worked for the government for 12 years. I know all about under-promising and over-delivering. And sadly, also about over-promising and under-delivering. But with respect to parenting, yes. And I find that honestly is one of my biggest struggles. And I know it's a me problem, but it's being present in that moment. And especially as a working parent. And I don't know how true this rings for you, Doc. I know obviously you are a working parent. And I know we've got working parents out there. You're drained. You spent 8 hours working. I work from home and it's still draining. But even if you have a commute, whether it's a short commute, if it's a long commute, I had that too. And you come home and you got nothing left. And you have to find something to dig deep into that. You have to dig deep into the basement. You got to go below the basement. You got to go below the foundation. You got to dig into the core of the goddamn earth to find the energy and the bandwidth to present to your child more than just a husk of a person. And that is not easy day in and day out. And there have been plenty of times that I've managed to do it. And there have been plenty of times that I haven't. And those times that I haven't really stick with me because my son is definitely old enough now, he's almost 5, that he will call it out. And he's like, Daddy, put your phone in your pocket, or, play with me. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying. Like, I really am. But again, for me, it's ADHD, it's anxiety, it's just being tired from work, it's this, that, and the other. And I try. And it's taken me a long time to begin to show myself some grace on the days that I maybe don't do as much as I would like, or I could other days. And to your point, what you were saying earlier, just got to be real with your kids. Just talk to them. Don't use super high language or a lot of words, which is my other issue, because anybody who knows me for more than 30 seconds knows that I do not speak concisely. Or especially if you've listened to the show for 6 years, I'm not a concise person. So much for that communications degree. But it's just about talking to my kids and saying, hey, listen, I'm really tired. Can you just give me a couple minutes to just rest and relax? And then I will absolutely play with you. And kids, as you said before, they're great BS detectors. They're also incredibly perceptive. And they are, by and large, very earnest. And if you present that earnestness and that honesty to them, and that's one thing where I'm proud to say that I never falter in that, they perceive that. And as long as it's not like every time that they want to do something and you're like, I'm busy, I can't, I'm tired, this, that, the other, that when you do get those moments of connection, they really resonate. And those are the ones that stick with you. And more importantly, those are the ones that stick with the child. And they know that even, okay, mommy or daddy can't play with me right now, but I know that they love me, because when I need them and when they're there, they're there. And so I may not always be able to play with my kids as much as I would like, or even focus on them, but I know for certain that they go to sleep at night knowing without question that they are loved above all else in this world. And that's what I hang my hat on as a dad. And I know, to bring it back to the episode, that's what Julia hangs her hat on, that at the end of the day, she knows that she has that connection with Rachel. And that is why she will always fight. That is the thing that keeps her going. That is her raison d'etre. Her essence is Rachel. So she will go through anything for that child. And Rachel knows it and appreciates it. So the third thing is Julia has had major life transitions with regards to abilities and purpose, because first she gets the powers. And so she's operating as Spider-Woman. Then she loses them. Then she gets them back. Then she becomes Madam Web. So now she's got a whole new set of powers and a brand new purpose that she has to completely shift gears. Not even just shift gears. She has to get out of the car and drive a brand new car on a brand new road. And, oh, by the way, the world's going to collapse if you don't.
Yeah.
So no pressure.
And the funny thing is, I know you were saying that as a metaphor, but that is the path that many of us take just organically. You don't need superpowers to understand this. Anybody that has had a major career shift at any point in their life where they had a degree in one thing, thought they were going to do that, then get disillusioned by it and either go back to school to do something else, or just simply say F it. And maybe because they're in a family, they stay at home for a while, take care of kids, things like that, which is a wonderful, wonderful, fulfilling existence. I'm not throwing shade at that. But then in addition to that, maybe there's other dynamics that come about, or you get an opportunity you didn't expect, and then you got to change your entire schedule for things and whatnot. Some of these I'm intentionally being vague. Other things I'm either calling out about myself, calling out about my co-host, calling out about people I know in general. No, I'm serious though, because if at any point in your life you think that's the way it's going to be for the rest of your life, then congratulations. You don't need a diagnosis, but I'll tell you you're delusional. Okay? It just does not
work that way. Period. Either the people around you are going to have changes in what they want in their lives, and you're going to have to find a way to adjust with them, or you're going to have to go your own paths and maybe you reconnect later, or your own ideas, thoughts, and intentions are going to change, in which case you're going to have to expect that you're going to explain it to the people that you love and care about, and either find the support with them or create a new circle of influence for yourself that is going to allow you to make whatever changes you have to. All these things happen usually more gradually than we think, but the way our brains process it, we like to make it sound very dramatic and sudden. You know, it's like the positive way that it's always been said in when it comes to influencer circles is, you know, it took you 10 years to become an overnight success. Like, no one likes to look at the rest of that iceberg. They just see the tip. And yes, that's the upside. That's the motivational side. That's great. The other side of that, of course, is no one expects that they've been Wile E. Coyote running off the edge of that cliff, but they've been doing it for the past several months. And now they can't understand why they're dropping. So what I'm saying with this really is to see if you can find some of the signals that a change is about to happen, because while you may not know what it is, I'm not claiming to say that you're going to know what the change is. You can sense it. You can notice either the change in your energy level, the change in your interests, the change in your sleep patterns, the change in your interactions with people. And a lot of times people will point it out to you. You may not even know what it means, but please be more attentive to it, because that allows for a much smoother transition, whatever it is. Your brain is allowed to open up to that change rather than resisting it up until the point that it smacks you when you run into the brick wall. That is so incredibly important. A part of it has to do with, and I apologize, I'm stealing this right now. I'm saying full on, I'm about to steal this. There's someone that I really enjoy listening to and reading. He's written a book. He's a part-time hospice doctor now, but he does a lot of financial stuff. His name is Dr. Jordan Grommet, used to go by Doc G because he wanted a pseudonym. I wonder. But he says a lot of times people get caught up in the big P purpose, meaning what is my place in the universe? What am I supposed to do to change the world? How am I supposed to navigate this part of my life, and what's it all about and all of that? When you do that, you create incredible anxiety and despair, and heaven forbid you don't, quote unquote, find the answer to that. And you end up giving yourself significant depression and just, kind of give up on things, and you end up living a poorer quality of life, and actually a shorter life usually, as opposed to the little P purpose, meaning what is it that I'm looking to do today? What is the thing that actually gives me energy? What is the thing that other people, when I do it, notice and say, like, wow, good job? What are those little things, the tiny things? They don't have to have this other gigantic meaning. If you focus on those things and the process of them, then your quality of life is improved. Your overall value and energy that you're able to take into the day and continue each day improves. And let me make this clear. I am not guaranteeing that means you'll find that big P purpose at all, but you don't have to. The fact that you are in this process that is enjoyable along the way with whatever transitions are coming, that means that those transitions are now viewed as opportunities rather than threats. So for anybody that needed to hear that because they've been wondering about, should I be making this next step or doing this big change, whatever it is, relationship, job, fitness, whatever, education, it doesn't matter what it is. What I'm saying to you is there's a great chance that the answer is yes, if you're willing to focus on the little things that make it happen rather than that big thing that is being thrown out at you.
You're talking about big P purpose and little P purpose. I would say so much of what you're discussing references another P word, perspective. It's about reframing, it's about putting things in perspective. And that is honestly one of the hardest life skills to master. There are some grown adults I know personally that cannot put things in proper perspective, either because of ignorance or willful blindness or lack of other, shall we say, relevant life experience, whatever the case may be, that they have difficulty putting things into perspective. And that, as I said, is never an easy thing because you can't force that. You can talk to somebody until you're blue in the face, but unless they understand the perspective that you have, y'all speaking a different language. And it's not going to result in a harmonious resolution, shall we say. So I think that is, it's perspective and self-awareness, which is similarly not an easy thing for a lot of people to grasp. And unfortunately, there's no real way to teach those. You can't teach someone perspective and you can't teach them self-awareness. You can talk to them about it and in so doing, hope that they gain them, but you cannot teach those things like you can teach math or literature or science, etc. Those can only be taught by the school of hard knocks. And unfortunately,
it's the school of hard knocks or the school of attentive listening. You really can't open your mind if you're willing to. At that part, like, don't get me wrong, there are some lessons that you can only learn for yourself, but there are many people that can teach you lessons if you just watch them or listen to them. If you hear it, that's it. And oh my goodness, how much pain can you save?
Yes. Okay. I absolutely understand. I will give you full credit for that. I do acknowledge that. That's a whole thing in and of itself. But I would say Julie is much more of the school of hard knocks than the attentive listening, for better or worse. With all that being said, we're going to take a break. We're going to plug a couple shows. When we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stick around.
Adventures in Aurelia, a D&D podcast with new players to learn alongside.
Adventures in Aurelia, a D&D podcast where everyone has a good time.
Adventures in Aurelia, a D&D podcast that is casual and inclusive.
Adventures in Aurelia, a D&D podcast with lots of lore and creativity.
Adventures in Aurelia, a podcast where 5 friends sit around the table and record themselves playing Dungeons and Dragons. Find us at adventuresinaurelia.com. That's ERYLIA.
Well, hello there. I'm Brian Wayne, host of the Cheers to Comics podcast, and I'm here to bring you the ultimate comic book podcast for readers and lovers and collectors of all levels. Whether you're trying to get caught up on last week's books or you're just looking to check out the latest interview with the latest creator, this is the podcast for you. So, if you're looking for a comic book show that doesn't stray away from the topic and you're looking to get an insight from a true fan and lover of this industry, then tune into the Cheers to Comics podcast 3 times a week as I, Brian Wayne, raise a glass to this wonderful, wonderful industry that is comics. Cheers.
Hey, I'm Jordan Bloom, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
And we're back. So treatment. Julie's got the power, but what is her treatment option?
Oh my. I so badly, based on her skill set, I just want like a massive Cerebro session. Like, I think that would be so cool. Or it would do something similar to what happened in Logan and I induce a random seizure that kills half the world. Whatever. I think one way or another, what I'm getting at is I want to unlock not just potential, but I want an expansion of what these things are that she's experiencing, because there is a lot that I don't think she understands for herself. And I'm not saying I may be the person to help with that, but I'm a person to help with that. And it's obvious that I'm motivated. So let's go ahead. Let's see what we can conjure up. Like literally, what can we conjure up?
Okay, so you're using some sort of something Cerebro-esque.
Yes.
To project images into her brain?
Yes.
because I want to see what the reactions are and if it has any influence on the outside world. Because you know what? I'm giving away too much of the skit. So let's stop there.
Okay, fair enough. So out of universe then, single mom, strained relationship with her parents, tries to do right by her daughter, has a career in flux, and is trying to find that center, that mooring, that something to attach her web to, if you will.
Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, this gets down to two possible approaches, and they can be widely divergent. I've mentioned interpersonal therapy before, and that's the nuts and bolts of the interactions that you want to cultivate. So if it's with her daughter, one way to look at it, how even role rehearsal, like how do you think those conversations are going to go as she gets older, as she becomes a person of her own? What are her views of you and how do you process that? Obviously, what her goal is with her parents. It's not for me to project whether or not she wants to, quote unquote, better that relationship. Because what does better mean? Does that mean actually creating more distance? Does that mean fostering strength that wasn't there before? Whatever it is. Okay, what do those conversations look like? If it's about work advancement or transition into other career fields or just a different job or whatever it is, okay. What do those interviews look like? What does your resume look like? How do you see yourself? What is my view of you as you are presenting to me so that you get the feedback necessary so that things go as well as they can? That's the nuts and bolts, like practical stuff. All the way on the other end is the more existential, like I said, the more existential, like, oh my goodness, like I'm making this work. Like I'm existing. I'm surviving. But am I thriving? What is the actual next level of what I'm supposed to experience in life, and how do I navigate that? And how do I bring the important people along with me? Because even if you yourself are getting to these higher, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of self-actualization, how does that influence everybody around you? Hopefully it's for the positive, but it may not be. And you have to be aware of that. So if the person is having much more of that style of what's going on in the universe and how are they fitting their role into it, then yeah, we can also have those types of discussions. Once again, not to be the judge of whatever their views are, but just making sure that at least they're in the realm of possibility and the realm of probability. Because it's one thing for me to say, oh yeah, that sounds like down the road at some point you may be able to do that, as opposed to, I hope in your lifetime you're able to accomplish those things, just recognizing that less than 0.001% of the population has ever accomplished the thing you just mentioned, just gauging where they think they are in the world. And and once again, not even talking superpowers. I mean, a lot of what I've noticed when people, be it emotional or intellectual or physical goals that they have, a lot of it has nothing to do with finding the secret to what is going to make it work. It's more like you've already probably either read or YouTubed or, talked to someone that has done the thing in some fashion that you've wanted to accomplish. And it involves a whole bunch of boring stuff that you just don't want to do. So if you go ahead and do it, there's a great chance you're going to get at least a better result than doing nothing, than doing none of it. And it's often the therapist's role to just remind them of what that next little step is, rather than saying like, hey, you're screwing up. Like, you don't have to do that. Although some people do respond to that pretty well. But it's just basically saying don't overthink it, because that's pretty much what we do. We all over-rationalize. I apologize. I shouldn't use that huge a generality, but many of us, we try and find like the one next, the one trick that is going to get us to the next level or to be better than we are. And the honest answer is, nah, you already know what it is. Just keep doing it. Like that's really it. If you want to have the results that you're looking for and you're doing the things that have been shown to give those results, keep doing them consistently, even when they're incredibly boring.
But how do you make them not boring? That's the problem I have, at least for me, is I know I have to do all these things. And the end goal, I really want the end goal. But it's all of those intermediate steps that, can I just fast forward? Can I get like the magical remote from Christopher Walken and just zip ahead?
I could have sworn there was a whole point to that.
Yeah, I probably just fast forwarded through the movie. I just want the remote. I'm kidding. That is obviously very much the point of that movie, is not to take that stuff for granted and not to fast forward through everything. So with the help of my sister, we are going to see what happens when we get Julia Carpenter on Dr. Issues' couch.
Now, just to let people know, for this particular occasion, I was asked to make this a telepsych session, and that I'm very skilled in that. So, pardon me.
Don't bother logging in.
What? When did you? How? Are you talking in my head? Get out!
I'm not really in your head. When I said telepsych, I meant telepathic psionics, not telephonic psychiatry.
Well, how do I know you're not an auditory hallucination and I'm just losing touch with reality?
Because I'm doing this to let you know that I was running late. Sorry for the misunderstanding.
Okay, so you're here in person, but you wanted telepsych just to tell me that you were running late. So you didn't really need telepsych. No blame. Just trying to calm myself. Hello, Julia. I'm Dr. Issues.
I know that.
It's a comforting ritual. Just go with it, all right?
Sure. Hello, Dr. Issues. I'm glad we can talk.
So what can I do to help you?
Much more than you care to know yet. I don't quite understand the details of my visions, but they involve you clarifying the fate of important people close to me.
Like who?
All of them.
Can we stick to one at a time?
That's not our choice. We have to figure this out together, because if we don't, something disastrous is going to happen.
Like what?
They're either going to die or get hurt. Again.
Sounds like you've gone through this before.
I don't dwell on it.
I'm not saying you should, but what was it like last time?
It put me into a coma.
I can see why you don't dwell on it.
I can hear that you're not as sensitive as your trauma-informed approach leads you to think when your wit gets in the way.
And I guess I put my foot in my mouth because your medical history indicates that you're blind. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry.
Apology accepted. You're genuine. I can tell.
Thanks. But how do I know you're...
I can tell.
Can I reply back this way?
No. One-way street. You don't have the experience I have.
But your cadence is more natural this way. And I can tell you're slowing down for me when we talk out loud. I'm a faster thinker than I am a talker.
So you had your mouth as a filter and still managed to be sarcastic to a woman who's trying to prevent terrible repercussions that I haven't solved yet?
Touché. Well, all right. So back to that thing. When does this happen?
Well, it must be close enough, or else I wouldn't have had a vision about it. Now, would I?
Mm-hmm. Got it. It's a protection mechanism.
Gee, Doc, what makes you think that seeing a horrible future you're trying to change would somehow be protected?
No, not the premonition. Your response to the premonition. Maybe it's, I don't know, catastrophic dissociation or sublimation or repression, whatever. Look, we'll have to work the details out, but my point is you shut down for some reason. So, I don't know, perhaps I can guide you through it in real time, make sure you don't get hurt.
This isn't exactly the best opportunity for guided meditation. Do you realize how bonkers that sounds? I thought I'd give you a description you could, I don't know, interpret it like a dream.
Two things. One, I've tried that before with someone else and I ended up in some places I didn't want to be. Second of all, that's not my role. If you want dream interpretation, I'm sure you can call up any number of superpowered friends to assist you with that, or look them up online, although I'm sure I don't have to warn you about the quality of people who advertise online. They're so obviously fake that even a bloviating fool can suss them out.
Good catch.
So, since we're not doing that, maybe we could suss out deeper meanings by not being so ham-fisted. I haven't done word association in a while.
I think there's a reason for that.
Well, be that as it may, I'm up to the challenge. Also, because free association takes too long and one of us would fall asleep. So, yeah, let's just get to it. All right, first word, spider.
Oh, come on. Predictable.
Power.
Sacrifice.
I almost expected
Finish
response.
that sentence. I dare you.
Right. Moving along. Loss.
Guarantee.
Whoa, that's heady. Yeah, we'll stop. Need to elaborate.
Is it that difficult to understand? If you stick around this world long enough, we all lose something. It's just the way it is.
So what have you lost?
My old powers, my life, my loves, my child's, my eyesight, my sense of a normal life. Just the little things.
Sweating the small stuff, huh?
Yeah, you could say that.
So what keeps you going? Have you, gained anything then?
Perspective, and lots of it. Some patience, I guess. Existential dread. Tenacity, but I don't think I needed to gain that. I was already pretty stubborn.
All right, so my brain's going to a different place. So how do we know that this thing you're experiencing is something that's going to definitely happen and it's not a part of your own spin on what the world would be if you mess it up? To put another way, maybe it's not as set in stone as you think it is. I think there's a possibility that your own mind is shaping the future so you're more useful when the time comes.
Doctor. That is perhaps one of the most asinine ideas I could think of to explain the fate of our corner of the universe in such a concise amount of time. Seriously, that is some grade A bullshitting right there. Doctor, that is perhaps one of the most asinine ideas I could think of to explain the fate of our corner of the universe in such a concise amount of time.
Hey, I'm really trying here.
And I can tell you're sincere. That's why I'm giving you another chance.
Another chance. Look, I'm just a random psychiatrist trying not to die at the hands of some incomprehensible cataclysmic force for once, and I have the common decency not to make the obvious jokes about, asking for lottery results. But all you can do is insult me? All right, fine. So I speculate about your psyche. That's all I can do at this point. You've survived worse, and I have to be the one that has to come up with 1,000 ways that won't work. Fine. That's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'll do. You know what? I'll keep doing it until we stumble upon one that does.
I guess you have more of a backbone than I thought. All right, I'll compromise because I agree this is taking way too long. I'll do random sessions with some psionic insight, but only briefly so you don't get overloaded. Deal?
Brief psionic therapy. If we started there, we would have probably figured it out by now. Gee, I wonder who gave that idea in the first place?
Oh, damn it. Well, go ahead. Gloat. You were right.
I don't gloat. Especially not in public. Told you so, told you so, told you so, told you so.
I could shut your brain down with a thought and leave you drooling on the carpet.
And I think we're done for today. Thank you so much for this time.
Wasn't it from one movie that they said I could shut you down and leave you drooling on the carpet? Or was it one of the X-Men movies?
Maybe, yeah.
It was either Xavier or Jean made a threat to Logan. I don't remember all the particulars. It's been a while since I've seen those movies. The good ones anyway. So, speaking of good movies, go see Madam Web in theaters. No, don't.
Oh, God. Oh.
Not from everything I've seen.
Now you're making promises we can't keep.
Oh, no, I definitely don't do that. I very much don't make promises I can't keep. It's one thing I learned from working in government and now as a dad. But I do promise you that we've got some really cool stuff to announce in the next couple weeks. So stick around, stay tuned. I'm much more focused on the show now than I had been. Not that I wasn't focused on the show, but I was dealing with some stuff. But this is a good outlet for me, and I'm re-energized, so to speak. So very much looking forward to all the good stuff that we have, like PoochCon coming up this weekend. So as I said at the top of the show, come check us out if you are in the area. Recommended reading is the 1993 miniseries that really kind of gets into a lot of who Julia is. Yes, the art is very 90s, but it sets the tone for who Julia is and a lot of her characterization moving forward. And it's pre-Madam Web, because I'm like, I prefer to focus on the Spider-Woman. I think she's cool as Madam Web, but I prefer her as Spider-Woman. There's just something about the aesthetic and her characterization, everything. I prefer Julia, with the black suit and the long hair. It's a distinctive look. So I dig it. Upcoming episodes, Speedball, which we will get to. I promise. I know I said that last time when we were talking with PKJ, but then I said, oh, look at the calendar. Madam Web, let's do a Spider-Woman character. So upcoming episodes, Speedball, Deathstroke, and Jack Russell. And as always, you can find all of our episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.com. We are also proud members of the Gonna Geek Network. I will be recording some episodes with our sister show, Play Comics, very soon. I'm going to be doing one solo. Doc is going to be doing one solo, and then he and I are going to team up. So there's going to be lots of Capes on the Couch and Play Comics interaction coming very soon. So stay tuned for that. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads at Capes on the Couch. I was looking into Blue Sky, but I'm already struggling to keep up with the social media at this point, and that's another network I can't. They're like, oh, we're not invite only anymore. Now it's open and available to everybody. That's man. Nice. I can't. You can join our Discord server. I've been trying to stay a little more active there. We added some new channels to talk there. So links in the show notes for all of that. And that's about all I've got, Doc, before we head out.
So remember, if you truly do want to emulate a carpenter, measure twice, cut once, and don't neglect your handiwork, because otherwise it'll be full of webs.
Ooh, I like that. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.